Aristotle's model is the first model of communication under linear category. We have already explained the meaning, concept, advantages, disadvantages, key points of Aristotle's model in our channel. So do watch the video. Aristotle's model is also called speaker-centered model. And he has explained that the communication process is heavily dependent on the speaker. To be precise, the communication process is dependent on the speaker's communication skills. Aristotle has explained the important communication skills required for a speaker, which are referred to as the critical elements of a speaker. In this video, let us learn the qualities of a speaker such as ethos, pathos, logos and kairos in detail with examples. This is Communication Studies Academy, your ultimate digital source of communication studies. And this segment is CSA Lessons. Aristotle model consists of 5 elements. They are speaker, speech, occasion, audience and effect. For better understanding, let us consider a school event. Mr. A is invited as the chief guest or keynote speaker for this event, and he is giving a speech on tips and tricks to score good marks in tests. In this example, Mr. A is the speaker, Mr. A's content or message is the speech, the school event is the occasion, and students are the audience. Now, the final element, effect, is directly based on how well the audience is able to understand the speech. In other words, the effect is based on the speaker's speech. Therefore, the speaker is responsible for preparing a speech that impacts the audience. And Aristotle has mentioned these required skills as rhetorical appeals or fundamental modes of persuasion or the critical elements of a good speaker. Now, what are the critical elements of a good speaker? They are ethos, pathos and logos. In addition, there is another element that is usually associated with the critical elements called Kairos. Now, let us learn about these 4 elements with examples. So, what is ethos? The word ethos originates from the Greek language and it refers to character or credibility. In other words, ethos refers to the speaker's credibility and trustworthiness. For example, let us consider this group meeting. And the main theme of this meeting is to conserve plants and stop deforestation. Here, topics such as effective planting techniques, conservation of trees, and deforestation dangers are discussed. Now, for an event like this, who would possibly be invited as the chief guest or the key speaker? Someone who has experience with plants, has worked for the conservation of plants, or has voiced against deforestation, and only a person with these qualities will be deemed relevant, right? But what if the event organizer has invited Mr. A, who has been destroying forest cover illegally for his commercial use? Now Mr. A is explaining the importance of plants, conservation of trees, and is expressing the dangers of deforestation. Now, even though Mr. A's speech is ethically right and good, the audience will find it hard to digest the fact that a corrupted man like Mr. A is talking about the conservation of plants. And this is what we call as ethos. Therefore, it is essential for the speaker to create trust and credibility in the minds of the audience even before beginning the speech. This trust and credibility are important to create a positive image in the minds of the audience that the speaker is worthy of conveying the message. In this example, even though Mr. A's speech is contextually right and ethically correct, the message does not reach the audience with the event's intended impact. In other words, Mr. A's speech will not create a positive effect because the audience will be busy thinking about the credibility and character of the speaker. And that is why Aristotle has mentioned ethos as the first critical element of a good speaker. So a speaker must build trust and create credibility. Next, let us learn about pathos. The word pathos also originated from the Greek language and it refers to strong emotions. In other words, pathos refers to the emotional connection that arises in the minds of the audience when listening to the speaker's speech. For example, let's consider a situation where people are suffering from hunger, and this advertisement's motive is to promote donations for the needy. Looking at this advertisement, the audience will feel sad, become sympathetic, and feel an urge to help them, isn't it? And to trigger these emotions and help viewers donate, it is evident that advertisers will use the right BGM, colors, etc. But what if the same concept is presented with party colors and a vibrant theme? This ad appears more like an invitation to a food festival and does not convey the idea of people suffering from hunger. So one of the important traits of a good speaker is to make their audience feel and experience the intended emotions like being happy, sad, or excited. In other words, the speaker has to create an emotional connection with the audience, so a speaker must ensure the speech builds an emotional connection with the audience. And this is what Aristotle mentions as pathos. Next, let us learn about logos, the third element. The word logos also originated from the Greek language and it refers to logic. Similar to ethos and pathos, Aristotle has mentioned that the speaker must have the ability to prepare a speech with logic. For example, let us take a doctor's conference. Here Dr. C is invited as the chief guest and he has over 25 years of experience. Many patients who were treated by Dr. C are attending the conference as an act of gratitude. And in this conference, Dr. C is explaining the details of his latest trip and stay at a beach resort. At a doctor's conference where medical students, experienced doctors and patients are present as the audience, Dr. C is expected to share relevant medical insights, but Dr. C is talking about his vacation without any logic. Even though Dr. C has credibility and the ability to connect with the audience emotionally, the lack of logical content in his speech prevents him from creating the intended effect. Therefore, a speaker's message must also be logically structured and supported by data such as facts, case studies, statistics, or scientific evidence. And this is what Aristotle mentions as logos. Now, students can expect this common question on critical elements of a speaker or rhetorical appeals. And we need to write only the three elements: ethos, pathos, and logos. Similarly, students can also expect a question on rhetoric triangle. The rhetoric triangle is nothing but representing ethos, pathos, and logos in a triangle format as shown on the screen. Apart from the three elements, there is another added element called Kairos that is usually associated with the critical elements of a speaker. The word Kairos also originates from the Greek language and means right or opportune time or moment. That is, a speaker must share information not just with ethos, pathos, and logos, but also at the right time or moment. For example, consider this scenario where Mr. A is sharing tips on growing and maintaining winter plants in the summer season. Now, even though this information is useful and gives the needed push to help people grow and maintain plants in the winter, and even though Mr. A has included facts and scientific evidence to show logic in his content, the audience may not associate with Mr. A because he is talking about winter plant care in the summer season. In other words, we would have seen repetitive umbrella or raincoat advertisements in the rainy season to boost sales. Similarly, it is important to prepare the speech that aligns with the right moment or time to connect with the audience appropriately. Now we have clearly understood the critical elements of a good speaker as suggested by Aristotle. Now let us move on to the concluding segment of this video, that is key points. Aristotle's model is also known as speaker-centered model. Since the speaker is the first element of Aristotle's model of communication, Aristotle has clearly mentioned the qualities of a good speaker as ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos. All four elements, ethos, pathos, logos, and kairos, were originated from the Greek language. Ethos can be translated as character or credibility. It means that the speaker is responsible for building trust and credibility in the minds of the audience. Pathos can be translated as strong emotions. In other words, the audience must feel emotionally connected with the speaker's speech. Logos can be translated as logic. That is, the content shared by the speaker must have a logical flow with facts, scientific findings, statistics, and/or case studies. We can mention the critical elements or rhetorical appeals in a triangle format called rhetoric triangle as shown on the screen. Aristotle has also mentioned the fourth element called Kairos. Kairos refers to the right time or moment. It means that the speaker must prepare their speech based on the moment or time. So in this video we have learned about ethos, pathos, logos and kairos, which are associated with Aristotle's model of communication. Feel free to comment on your queries, doubts and concept suggestions in any content related to communication studies, and we will answer all your questions in our CSA Learners Corner segment every Sunday. We believe you find this video useful. Do watch the explanations of other communication models and concepts in Communication Studies Academy channel. Thank you for learning with us.